Hello everyone. So today we will be finishing up section 9.1, which is dedicated all to learning how to write an equation of a circle. So the two topics that we're going to go over today is just like the two different scenarios of what we're given. All right? So the very first topic we're going to learn how to write an equation of a circle given its center and a point on the circle. So essentially, what is that? So if I have this circle here, we're given the center HK and we're given any point on the circle XY, right? It doesn't matter. It could be anywhere, right? Here, it doesn't matter. But what do we know about a circle? A circle is equidistant. So no matter what point we pick on the line, as long as we're given the center, what do we know? We know that the center, the line between, from the center to a point on the circle is called the radius, right? So, this is R, right? So when we write an equation of a circle, what is our goal? Our goal is to make it look like x minus h quantity squared plus y minus k quantity squared equals to r squared. So our goal is to make it look like the standard equation of a circle, right? So when we look at this, so we're given the center, we're given a point. But when we look at this, what do we need in our equation? We need to know what r is, right? So how do we find r? We're going to use r by using the distance formula. Why? Because we're given 2 points, and so and r is the distance between those 2 points. So yeah, so to find r, we're going to be using the distance formula. And then the second step to find the equation, we're just going to plug in the center and the radius, and then we're going to simplify. All right. So let's start off with let's do some examples. So the direction says find an equation of the circle that has center negative 6, 5 and passes through negative 2, 1. All right. So we have a circle. Okay. So the center is negative 6, 5 and then passes through negative 2, 1. So honestly, it doesn't matter where you put, because this is just like a sketch. But if you want to be precise, so negative 6 is smaller than negative 2, so it's going to be on the left side, and then 1 is less than 5. So I'm going to guess that negative 2, 1 is over here, right? But again, it doesn't matter because any point that we're given on the circle, it will be the same distance, right? But if you just want to be accurate. So our goal is to find this line right here, right? So what are we going to do? We're going to use the distance formula. So what is the distance formula? The distance formula is d is equal to the square root of x2 minus x1 quantity squared plus y2 minus y1 quantity squared, right? So we're just going to plug in some values. So what is d in this case? D is equal to r, right? And then it doesn't matter what you pick. So let's just say, let's do it this way. X1, Y1, I'll make it the center. So negative 6, 5, and then X2, Y2 is negative 2, 1. Right? So we're going to plug in the values. So I have R is equal to the square root, and then so x2 is negative 2 minus x1, which is negative 6 quantity squared, plus y2 is 1, and then y1 is 5. Right? So let me double check to make sure I plugged in the points correctly. Right? And I did. So now that we've plugged in these values, let's simplify to find what r is. So r is equal to square root, and then negative 2 minus negative 6, that is negative 2 plus 6. So let me plus right here. So negative 2 plus 6, that is 4. Okay, and then 4 squared is 16. Right? And then 1 minus 5 is negative 4. negative 4 quantity squared is also 16, right? So the square root of 16 plus 16, the 16 plus 16 is 32, right? So normally when we see a square root, we want to simplify, right? However, in this case, we don't have to. So we don't have to say this is what, actually no, this would be 4 square root of 2, right? We don't have to do this. Why? Because we're just going to square it, right? So if we simplify, we're just doing more work than necessary. And then if we have two factors like this, we are more apt to make a mistake because sometimes we'll forget to square one of these, right? But if we just keep it like this, then all will be fine, right? So in this case, you do not have to simplify. So don't need to simplify, right? So now that we found the radius, okay, so we know the center, we know the radius. Those are the two things that we need to know. Since we know them both, we can now plug it into our equation. So remember, I'm going to say recall the center. That's terrible. Let me rewrite it. Center is negative 6, 5. Right? It matters. HK is our center. All right? Negative 2, 1 is just a point on the circle. So I cannot use that. It has to be the center. Right? So I know the center, I know the radius. So let's plug everything in. So we have x minus negative 6 quantity squared. So this is HK. Right? Plus y minus 5 quantity squared is equal to the square root of 32 quantity squared. Right? Now let's simplify. X minus negative 6, that is x plus 6 quantity squared. Y minus 5 is already simplified as possible. And the square root of 32 quantity squared, that is just 32. Right? So that is what I got. And so this is our standard equation. This is the equation of our circle given given center negative 6, 5, and it passes through negative 2, 1. Right? So now let's do another example. Right, so maybe I'm going to bring this down with us. Okay, just so we remember what our goal is. Okay, so for example 2, we're given center 1, negative 1, and it passes through 6, negative 5. Right? So if I just draw a rough sketch, okay, we have center, so it's 1, negative 1, and then 6, 5. Again, it doesn't matter. When you're sketching like this, if I don't have to properly graph it, it doesn't matter, okay? But if you want to be precise, you can. So it's going to be like right here, right? So again, we know these 2 points, okay? But when we write an equation of the circle, we need the center and we need the radius. Okay, maybe I should write that down. So need 2 things. 1, center. 2, radius. Right? So we have the center. All we need is the radius. So how do we have the radius? So we do have a point right here, and we know that the point, any point on the circle, and then connected with the center, this is considered the radius. And to find that, we will have to use the distance formula. Okay, so again, what is the distance formula? The distance formula is d is equal to the square root of x2 minus x1 quantity squared plus y2 minus y1 quantity squared, right? Remember, so D is our R, and then x1, y1. I'll just make that the center. Again, it doesn't matter what point you pick, just be consistent. Right? x2 minus, or x2, y2 is 6 minus 5. Right? So now let's plug it in. So maybe I should be, so find radius. Right? So this is R is equal to the square root. X2 is 6, x1 is 1, and then y2 is negative 5, and then y1 is negative 1. Right? So 6 minus 1 is 5. 5 squared, that is 25. Right? Negative 5 minus a negative 1, that is negative 5 plus 1. Plus 1. So that'll be negative 4. Negative 4 quantity squared is 16. Right? 25 plus 16, that is 40, the square root of 41. Right? Again, we don't have to simplify, but even so, this couldn't be simplified anymore because 41 is a prime number. Right? So it's only divisible by 1 in itself. So now that we found the radius, we were given the center, we found the radius. Now that we have these two things, what can we do? We can now start finding the equation. So maybe just put standard equation a circle, or maybe put the equation of the circle. Right? So again, let me I think it'll be fine. All right, so the equation of the circle, so it's going to be x minus h quantity squared plus y minus k quantity squared equals r squared. So in this case, what is h? So this is center. Center is hk. Right? So it will be x minus 1 quantity squared plus, and then y minus a negative 1 quantity squared is equal to the square root of 41 quantity squared. Right? And then now we have to simplify. So this becomes x minus 1 quantity squared plus y plus 1 quantity squared is equal to 41. Right? And this is our equation of a circle given center 1, negative 1, and it passes through 6, negative 5. Right? So that is it for this topic. So this one, the first topic, is not too bad because we already given the center. So pretty much all you need to know is that if you understand this picture, so you have the center, and any point on this graph will give you the radius, right? And if you know that radius can be considered a distance, right? So you need to understand that radius is the distance, and then you also need to know the distance formula just so you can find the radius. So once you find the radius, then things are smooth sailing. Next will be the topic 2, and it'll be given the endpoints of a diameter. So we'll talk about that next.